Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rosey Posey Podcast. I'm Sean McGill and it's a big one today. We're joined by the gaffer, Bonnyrigg Rose manager, Robbie Horn. How are you doing, Robbie?
Been great. Yourself?
Not too bad at all. I mean,
Good.
The big news in the last couple of weeks last week really, is we could finally get back to training. How was that on Thursday of last week, finally getting back to some contact training?
Well, it was actually Tuesday. We were supposed to be back because of the weather. Because of the weather, it was actually put back. So, we went back Thursday. It was good to be back. Boys had obviously kept themselves ticking over and fairly fit, to be honest, just throughout lockdown. And then back again on Saturday, and then hopefully normal kind of week this week, back at last week training. So, no, it's good to be back, and to see the boys have kept themselves in pretty good condition. So, everybody's ready to go.
Do you know it's a big lift in the boys getting back to normality now? I mean, I know there was the odd wee session, but to getting properly stuck in and getting back to sort of a bigger semblance of normality must have been good.
Yeah, especially just getting the balls out and getting the goals out as well, and getting wee games in possession. That's what the guys love to do. They've enjoyed it. The tempo's been great at training and right away as well. It's been a really high standard. So, they look like they're pleased to be back.
And we'll get on to this squad and all things Bonnyrigg very soon, but just focus on yourself for a moment. Growing up, how big a part did football play in your life? Were you just football daft when you were a kid?
Yeah, just out kicking the ball about in the street. I just remember there's a few of us that used to stay in the same street. Ian Murray being one of them. Obviously went on to play at Hebs. His brother, another guy called Kevin Hall, who went down to Crystal Palace as well when we were younger. We used to be kicking about in the streets quite a lot. And it was one of the neighbours that kind of said to me about going along and playing I went out and played for North Merchiston when I was about 7 years old, with the under 11s. So it was all a bit different back then. You're playing 11 aside right away, 7, 8 years old, playing 11 aside. So that's where it kind of started. Went to North Merchiston, and from there moved on to Vale and played there for a number of years after that.
See, when you're growing up and you've got 3 or 4 years who are clearly at a good standard, like you're saying, they're going on to have good careers. Do people notice that at the time? Were people saying, "Oh, these kids look like they could be good," or to you was it just kicking about your mates like anyone else?
For me, it was just kicking about my mates, to be honest. Obviously, when you're starting to go through school, people start to talk, and boys start to get snapped up on S forms, etc. as well. So it's a different way than it is now, obviously. But yeah, for me, it was just kicking about in the park with my mates, which you always enjoyed.
Absolutely. And your youth career proper started with Hearts. How did that come about? Was that straight from Vale then?
Yeah, so I went from Vale with the under 16 level. Hearts had a team that was set up, and it was like a sort of pro youth. It was the first sort of start of the kind of pro youth, I would say, where you played against other teams like Celtic and Rangers, etc. as well. So Hearts had entered a team at that level, so it was just a year before I went to full time. And then I had different options at the time as well to go different places, but obviously being a Hearts fan as well, it's obviously a dream to go and play for your local team and your boyhood team. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for me. Went in full time, 16 turning 17. So that was it.
What was that like to walk into your boyhood club so you've gone as a fan and grown up loving them, and now you're part of that?
It was pretty daunting, to be honest. You obviously been used to being on the terrace and supporting players, and then all of a sudden you're training with them, or you're going in the morning, you're doing their kit, etc. as well. So it was all a bit daunting for me, I think. Obviously being a Hearts fan, for the other guys that maybe travelled or come from the West, it wouldn't be as big a deal, but for me it was massive. It was a massive thing, but it's something you look back on with fond memories as well. And
what was it like in that dressing room as a youngster? Did you get any hard times?
Initiations, obviously. Get up and singing in front of all the squad as your initiation. Mostly, to be honest, when you first went in, it was the ground staff. You just did your initiation. And then the Christmas night out was an initiation, but it was all the new players had to sing. It was in front of all the first team squad, etc. as well. So,
do you remember what you sang?
I sang Dignity. Deacon Blue Dignity.
Deacon Blue.
Deacon Blue Dignity. So I think it was all right.
Rate yourself. I like that. And for the majority of your time at Hearts, or if not all of it, Jim Jeffries was the manager. He's a great character, Scottish football. What was he like to be around at that time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I first went, it was Walter Kidd. He kind of looked after the ground staff. He was very much undisciplined, but he was brilliant. You look back in the grounding that he actually gave you and what he prepared you for as well. It wasn't just football; it was in life as well. Taught you good habits. No, I think when you look at a lot of the guys that he had when we were on the ground staff, a lot of guys who went on to be really good players and had successful careers, and obviously went on to be managers as well. So, I took a lot from that. Playing with the reserve team as well, with Paul Hegarty as a coach, and he was a massive influence on me, I would say. Again, expected high standards, but if you worked hard, then he would back you 100%. And I really enjoyed working with these two guys, and then obviously went on to be involved with the first team and with Jim and Billy as well. It was difficult for me at that time because there were so many good players in that Hearts first team squad. You look back, the likes of McPherson, obviously Craig Levein when I first went in as well, but McPherson, Ritchie, Bruno, Presley, Petrich, Weir, just real abundance of top quality players. So it was really difficult for me to try and kind of break through at the time, and had injuries as well at that time and didn't really get an opportunity. But when you look back at it, you kind of realise I probably wasn't good enough, and that's the reality of it. But somebody whenever I speak to, when I bump into them, Jim and Billy always have a good chat with them. They're decent guys, decent guys who've done a fantastic job at Hearts.
When you talk about earlier on picking up good habits and having high standards of you as a person, how important do you think that is in football to sort of instill that side of stuff into players and demanding them as much of them as a person than as a player?
That's massive for me, and I think that's something we've got quite a lot of in our changing room. Those high standards when it comes to training. The guys demand a lot of each other. They got on great. Don't get me wrong, they get on great, but they demand high standards from each other when it comes to training and games. But yeah, I think it's changed. Football's changed a lot. You'll hear a lot of people say that, and I think it's a lot easier for young guys now coming through, and you can stay behind at training. Whereas when I was on the ground staff, you didn't get the opportunity to stay behind at training. It was you go and do your jobs and the washing and cleaning boots and sweeping terraces and stuff like that. Which I say that gives you a good grounding. And makes you kind of appreciate what you get. Whereas I think now it's a little bit different. I think it is easier for guys, but obviously they've got the chance to go and do things in the afternoon and improve their skills, etc. as well at the same time.
How do you work around that now then? If you've got a younger player coming through who doesn't get the chance to sort of do those jobs and stuff like that, how do you think? In your obviously you don't get to work with players day to day in Bonnyrigg Rose, but how do you sort of maintain those high standards? How do you make sure that they're being good human beings as well as good players?
I think that comes from at Bonnyrigg. I think it comes from the rest of the players that are there. We've got 3 young guys training with us at the moment. Robbie Neve, Aaron Laidlaw, and Nicky Weir, who, to be fair, have all done great so far at pre-season training as well. And hopefully they've got good big futures at Bonnyrigg. But I think that they can learn a lot from the guys that are there at the moment who, they like a laugh and a joke and they get on great, but at the same time when it comes to training and games and that, you can see how much that means to them. And I think the guys will hopefully really learn from these people as well. Obviously our intentions for the young boys as well is to try and get them out on loan this season as well and get some game time at a good level. And obviously playing adult football as well. Obviously been used to playing in the 20s, but going out and playing against adults, I think, is a massive thing for them, and hopefully that will make them develop as well.
You mentioned the talent in that Hearts squad. Was there anybody in particular who'd just be sort of around on the training ground or during games? Just really, like they would just blow you away, the level of talent they had.
There's a number of top quality players at Hearts at that time, as I say. Obviously, in my position, Davy Weir was a fantastic player for Hearts, and obviously Scotland Rangers as well. Everton had a fantastic career. One of the players I remember when I first went in though was a guy called Jim Bett. you might not know him, but he played for Aberdeen for years and played for Scotland as well. But I just remember Jim Bett, he was probably about 35, 36 when he came to Hearts. But remember him taking corners one side with his right foot and then going over to take it the other side with his left foot. And just had unbelievable ability. Not many players see doing that these days. But I played some, as I say, there were some great players in at that time. As I said, centre halves, Dave McPherson, Paul Ritchie, Pasquale, Bruno, another one as well. Was there at that time. So it was great to be at the club at that time.
And like you said, that level of talent might be part of the reason that you didn't get as much game time as you would have liked, and you end up out on loan at Cowdenbeath under former teammate Craig Levein. Was that a good experience, do you think? You didn't get a massive amount of minutes there either, but do you think to sort of go out with a different environment other than Hearts and work under a different manager might have benefited you?
No, it definitely did. It was just a short-term thing, to be honest. The saw out the season at Cowdenbeath. Craig had been obviously a player at Hearts and kind of knew me. He'd actually taken the youth team a few times when I was involved in it. So, he was a good manager, a good guy. And I appreciate the opportunity to go out and play at Cowdenbeath. And I think it is important for the development of young players as well. I think that, going out and playing at a decent level, gives them a grounding and hopefully toughens them up. And they go on to play with their senior teams again. When I was a manager at Berwick, we had a couple of players like that. Andy Irvine, obviously playing in Hearts first team. Robbie McCrory was another one who's now in the Scotland squad, and I think it done them the world of good.
Because you were out at Cowdenbeath, were you around the Hearts squad during the 98 Scottish Cup win, or were you out with it?
I was kind of on the fringes. of the first team. I thought at the time there was maybe a chance of being involved in the squad, which went away and prepared for it and whatever. And I was probably one of maybe two players that kind of missed out on that opportunity, which was gutting at the time. But at the same time, fantastic day for any Hearts supporter being at the cup final.
Absolutely. And your time at Hearts comes to an end. How does that come about? Is that do you at the time, did you feel it was best for you to move on as well? Or were you hoping to stay and fight for a place?
It just run its course, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't featuring. I'd been out on loan. I'd been over in Ireland and played over in Ireland as well for a little spell at Lisbon Distillery. It was Andy Kirk's dad, Ben Paul Kirk, took me over to Lisbon. I used to fly over there on a Thursday, train Thursday, play a game on a Saturday, and then come back. And it just ran its course, to be honest. And I was out on loan at Forfar towards the end of the season, and just I was a very small conversation I had with Jim. I just thought it was it, and it was time to go, time to move on, it was hard at the time. You look back on it as well, because at the time I was obviously full time, and then you're having to get a job, working full time, and you're playing part time as well. So it's a really difficult thing to adjust to, and it happens obviously a lot. At the moment, obviously one of our ex-players is now at Spartans, Dan Bauer, was going through something similar, and probably why I've had such a good relationship with Dan as well, to be honest, that he's somebody who's obviously leaving Hearts. He's a boy, that's his boyhood team as well, and he's having to now get into the real world of working full-time and playing part-time. But they say for any player that's doing that, it's a really difficult thing to adjust to and get used to as well.
Absolutely. Jumping back to your spell in Ireland there, how hard is that when you're only going over on the Thursday, you're training for maybe a couple of hours or whatever, and then playing a Saturday? How can you gel into a team? Does that become a really sort of hard predicament to be in?
It was brilliant. I loved every minute of it. Andy's dad and family made me very welcome. I used to, as I say, fly over on the Thursday, stay with Andy's mum and dad, train on the Thursday night, have Friday to myself in Belfast, and then play the game Saturday and fly back. But the boys were all really, really welcoming to me when I was there. So it was actually, I really enjoyed my spell over in Ireland. It was great. It was funny, there'd be about 4 or 5 Scottish boys all flying over at the same time on a Thursday to train on the Thursday night, game on the Saturday, and they'd all fly back on a Saturday after the game. You usually meet the guys at the airport and have a couple of beers. So it was good. It was good times.
Sounds pretty good. And after that, you end up at Forfar. How did that come about?
I finished the season at Forfar when that last season I had at Hearts, and we were going for promotion as well, and which we got in the last game of the season. So, I was actually in that summer. Forfar wanting to obviously sign me, but Stirling Albion were kind of favourites. Stirling Albion at the time were going to be in the same league as Forfar, and they were full time, and they were going to offer me a contract, but I kind of had a conversation with Ray Stewart, who was a manager, and Forfar wanted to speak to me. As I said to Ray, I said, look, I'm going to go and speak to Forfar. I played in the last season with them, but I want to stay full time, but I've got to give them the place to kind of give me an opportunity to stay there. So I went and spoke to Forfar, part time, money wasn't the same, so I was like, look, I'm going to sign for Stirling. So I went to meet Ray Stewart and travel through. He's sitting in the manager's office and he said to me, you've made me sweat the last few days, son, so I'm going off on holiday tomorrow, and he said, I'm going to make you sweat as well, so we'll sort this out when I come back from holiday. So I actually just got up and basically told him to F off, and walked out and signed for Forfar.
Wow.
And then about 2 years later, Ray Stewart turned up as the Forfar manager.
So, how does that work? Do you have to have a conversation in that sense to clear the air, or is it sort of?
He got introduced to the team at Forfar, the squad up at Forfar his first night, and he just kind of said to me, "Do you remember me, son?" But he was, to be fair, he was actually brand new. There was no issues at all. He was fine. So just one of these situations that happens at football.
Yeah, funny how that works out, but at least it was all fine. And 100 appearances at Forfar, it's obviously a great club for you throughout your career, and the same could be said of Berwick. It's somewhere you return as a manager, but as a player, how do you look back on your time down south?
It was great. They had a fantastic changing room, similar to what's at Bonnyrigg, to be honest, and the spirit they've got amongst themselves as well. It's exactly the same as what I had down at Berwick. Great bunch of boys, all around about the same kind of age. So going to training was enjoyable. You worked hard when you went to training, but it was enjoyable. You're with your mates, really. That's what it was like. And obviously we had a successful spell. We won the league as well. We'd missed out the season previous, and then the second season we went on to win it with probably a squad which wasn't as good as the previous season and probably wasn't the best squad in the league, but we managed to win the league.
Yeah, brilliant. And when you're at Berwick, is that when coaching starts coming to your mind? Or have you got that much earlier on, or are you always thinking I'd like to get into that side of the game?
Yeah, it was probably when I was at Berwick, and I think there'd been a change of manager again, and Jimmy Crease had stepped in to be like the manager, but Jimmy didn't want to get involved with regarding what was happening on the training pitch, so he kind of left it to Ian Little and myself at the time to kind of do the training. So it's kind of from that point there I kind of got involved, and obviously left Berwick, went to the Vale as a coach initially, and within 3 weeks the manager was away, and they offered me the job, and that's just kind of snowballed from there, to be honest. So
how did that feel to step up and take a managerial role for yourself, to be the sort of number one man in the job?
It was fine, to be honest. Again, I was really lucky. When I was down at the Vale, it was a great bunch of boys down there. They'd been successful in the previous season and been promoted. So they'd had a decent squad together, been used to kind of winning in the league, obviously below. So they had a good spirit amongst them. So they kind of made it easy for me. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy as in the league that we were in and what we were competing with and the budgets, etc. But the way the guys went about their business and how they were as a group, it made things easier for me. And I was lucky as a young manager that I actually had that. And if it'd been a more experienced change room, it might have been more difficult for me. They could have caused issues, but as it was, the guys were great. And
then you returned to Berwick as a coach. Is that right? Or is it a lot the same?
Yep. I went back as assistant manager. So Yano got the job. And I'd had a decent spell. At the Vale. We'd had a good Scottish Cup run as well. We'd beaten Cove, and we'd got knocked out by Auchinleck down there, and we were a wee bit unlucky in the day. But Yano got in contact and just basically asked if I fancied going back as assistant manager. And for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I seen it kind of as a step up, which was no disrespect to the Vale at the time, but I just thought it was a kind of step up. So, and obviously Jano had been somebody I had a really good relationship with, and we still to the day we get on great, got on really well. So it was a no-brainer to go back and work with Jano.
And after that is when Bonnyrigg Rose come calling. How does that feel to have a club sort of the size of Bonnyrigg Rose to offer you the manager's job?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, when I left Berwick, it was Colin Cameron was the manager, and I just kind of felt I'd kind of gone a bit stale a little bit and just needed a wee change, and maybe going into management was an option for me. And obviously there'd been changes at Bonnyrigg as well, and Charlie picked up the phone and asked me to come in for a meeting, and I met with Charlie, Brendan and Bob, and it was a quick meeting, but we offered the job, and it's never not really looked back since then, to be honest, as a club. It's been great. It's been a great experience working with these guys, and these guys work incredibly hard for the club. I was lucky as well. There was a core of maybe 5 or 6 boys that are really still there now that have been great for the football club, like Johnny Browns, the Johnny Stewarts, Al Horns, these kind of guys. They've been fantastic for the club from that period, and been great for me in that spell as well. And obviously we've brought in boys over that period of time who've all fitted in really well to the makeup of the squad.
And that first season, it's a league title. How proud was that to sort of wrap that up in your first season at the club?
It was brilliant, and if you asked many Bonnyrigg Rose supporters, they would have thought it wasn't going to happen after the first game away at St Andrews.
Tell me about that, because I'm not as well versed as a lot of Bonnyrigg fans who'll be watching. So
first league game away at St Andrews, prepared really well with a great pre-season. Our second choice goalie, Billy Bald, at the time had his brother's wedding, so he couldn't make it. And Paul Grant, who was our first choice goalkeeper at the time, he worked as a postie, so it was maybe a bit tight for him to get up there for the start of the game. So as it was, Bobo, as he was known, is racing up to try and get there for kick-off. He finished his work late first and foremost, but then got stopped by the police for speeding. So eventually turns up late. We were thinking about sticking somebody else in the goals, but they managed to delay the kick-off for us for 5-10 minutes just to let Bobo get there and get the game started. But as a game it was a weird game. We were like the better team and just dominated, but just couldn't score. We lost 2 goals. We ended up getting beat 2-0. I think Johnny Brown got sent off as well. It was just a bit of a nightmare start, and you're just thinking, oh, here we go. I know there's a conversation. I think there's a couple of supporters that kind of said, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to last long after that first game." But nah, yeah, it was just one of those days that just never really went for us. And but from that point on, we started to get it together.
When you hear stuff like that, like, oh, one keeper couldn't make it because it was his brother's wedding, and then another one was late because he's a postie. Have you had any particularly funny or like weird reasons that people couldn't make games or couldn't make training?
I saw one on Twitter today, but I don't know if you've seen it.
Don't know if we should repeat that on this podcast.
We're not going to talk about that one.
Absolutely not. But I do know exactly what you're talking about.
No. The boys are usually pretty good, pretty reliable. We had a wee joke about it. I dropped that one into the group chat to the boys today and just said I've not had this one yet. And Kerr remarked that working in Fife tonight was one of his favourites. So, but nah, the boys are pretty good, pretty reliable for getting to training and games. That
league title we're talking about there is maybe a bit unexpected, and it was the first one in 4 years. How did you go about making sure that there was a winning mentality back at Bonnyrigg over that time? How did you ensure that they were back up to the standard that they could win league titles?
I think it became a wee bit more expected in that sort of spell for Bonnyrigg as well. And the season previous had been a wee bit disappointing. I think they'd finished 8th in the league the season previous. So, it's just try to set standards and, not accepting defeat and accepting mediocrity. So, I say setting standards, creating a spirit amongst the players. I think that's important for me, and managing guys as best as you possibly can. And I think think they did that over the course of the season. And as I said, I was lucky. There was a group of boys there already that were, got on really well together, had good attitudes. And the boys that came in as well, they really gelled to the people that were there. And, it made for a great season for us.
One of the key standout moments from that first tenure at Bonnyrigg was the Scottish Cup run that ended with the Hebs game. But to lead a team out at Tynecastle, like you say, the boyhood Hearts fan was there as a player. So as a manager, to lead a team out at Tynecastle against Hebs of all teams must have been a massive honour.
It was. Do you know what? It became a bit of a circus as well. And when I look back on it, you kind of forgot about the game a wee bit. But right. you can't fault the guys for that. The run that we'd had and the victories that we'd had in the games previous to that, we had some great results. I remember the game up at Turriff. It was tight, and we ended up getting away with a draw up there, and then beating them back at home, beating Cove at home as well at the time, who were a really good side, and then obviously beating a championship team in Dumbarton was huge. So the guys earned the right for the day in the sun, to be honest, against Hebs. And as I say, I was just disappointed on the day that we didn't perform like we possibly could. But it was something that we'll never forget. The build up with obviously with Sky, etc. as well, with the James Bond theme, and it was just unbelievable. I remember before the game as well, doing an interview for Radio 5 Live, and I think it was Liverpool were playing the same day, or they played the night before, or something like that. But I was waiting on the interview with Jurgen Klopp to finish before I started my bit, and you're just like, this is a bit weird. But yeah, good memories.
But to be in the same breath as Jurgen Klopp isn't too bad. So
it's not too bad. No,
you can take pride in that one. The first spell of Bonnyrigg comes to an end. You go down to Berwick. You've obviously got a lot of ties with that club as well. So to take a job with them in the SPFL must have been great for you.
It was, and it was probably at the time I kind of looked at it as my only opportunity to get into senior football. Bonnyrigg hadn't made that trip across the east of Scotland as yet, that we switch across. So I kind of seen it as maybe my only opportunity to get into senior football, because it's really difficult for managers at lower levels to get that opportunity of senior football. And as I said, I just thought it was a wee chance for me, and it didn't work out. I think I was probably at the club at the wrong time. Things off the park weren't great. Atmosphere around the club as a whole wasn't great, and it's it was disappointing the way everything turned out. And it looks like they're managing to sort things out now off the pitch, which is good. And obviously Jano's back there as well, so wish them all the best.
And you've had that a great period of success in your management career leading up to that. So how tough an experience was that to sort of face a real roadblock?
I was under no illusions when I went in how difficult the job was going to be. I mean, it was a really tough league. Some decent teams in there, decent teams spending good money as well. I mean, in that respect, you couldn't compete. But I felt like I was good enough to do the job, to try and get them, out of that bottom end of the table and looking sort of towards more the top half of the table, and just to see where we could go from there. But as it was, it didn't transpire for a number of reasons. Maybe some things I did wasn't good enough, but I just felt there was a complete malaise around the whole club at the time. And I think a lot of people looking back would probably say the same thing. And hopefully the changes down there have been for the better, and it looks like it has. Especially over the lockdown period, to see what they've done regarding social media and their websites and all of the different things they've undertaken. This was great, and it's good to see that things have changed, because in the day, it's still a club that I've got a lot of respect and a lot of heart for as well, because they were good to me and I had good times there as well as a player. So being there as a manager and not being successful, it's disappointing, but that's what happens sometimes in football.
And you said that after that you're maybe a little disillusioned with football, and the one place you think you'd come back to would be Bonnyrigg. Why was that? What was so right about Bonnyrigg? You feel like that's the place where you could feel sort of safe and enjoy football again?
Yeah, obviously when I left towards the end of Berwick, there was difficult times. I was coming home and I wouldn't say it was in bad moods, but it was just difficult to kind of forget about what had happened. And right after the game on the Saturday, you were thinking about going to training on the Tuesday, Thursday, and trying to prepare for next Saturday. So they started to affect me. There's no doubt about that. Had a wee sort of health scare when I was there as well, and it was just like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
And then I made that decision just to step away from it and take a wee break from football. But at the same time, I think it was just, in fact, it was before me. I think Whitey had actually resigned as manager of Bonnyrigg as well. So he'd actually gone first. And then, there was a conversation with Charlie as well, as soon as I'd kind of left, or as soon as Whitey had left, to be honest, that, would I be interested in coming back to Bonnyrigg? And I kind of had to say to Charlie, look, I'm not right for this at this moment in time. I need to have a break from football and, recharge the batteries and see where I'm at. But after 3-4 weeks, obvious to me that I wanted to go back to football, but I just didn't want to rush into it at the same time. And I was lucky that the club were understanding of that. There was lots of rumours that I was going back for long enough, and obviously David going back as well as sort of temporary manager with and Johnny helping as well. So so I was, I kind of made that decision after about 3-4 weeks that I was going to go back, but I was just waiting for the right time when I felt right in my own head that I was ready to go back.
And if you weren't sure about if you were still enjoying football, the season that followed would definitely make sure that you would, because it was just a mad season at Bonnyrigg. The league winners, how do you look back on it? Because it was a pretty crazy
it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible. Some of the things that happened towards the end of the season, just unreal. And that game against Broxburn away will never be forgotten. It was just, again, it's one of those days. Moisey I think it was some family wedding he was at, so he wasn't available. Your goalie gets sent off. You concede from the free kick, and you're just thinking, oh, here we go. And then you're 2-0 at the end at half time. But there was just something in me with, like, at half time, I remember speaking to the players and could see their heads were down a wee bit, and I just but I still felt we were still in the game because we've got players that could cause them problems. And what I just said to them at half time was just keep it tight for 15-20 minutes, and then we can maybe open up and have a wee go. And they did that, and once we got a goal back, they started to panic a wee bit, and we grew in confidence in the game. And to actually go on and win the game 3-2 with 10 men, it's just absolutely incredible, and it speaks volumes for the group of boys that are actually there and the spirit they've got, the desire to win as well. In the time that I've been at Bonnyrigg, there has been so many times where we have scored in the 89th or 93rd minute, whatever it is, to win games of football. It's incredible, and that's, as I said, that's down to players, good players, really good players, great attitudes, but just a real spirit, togetherness, and desire to win football matches.
You're saying that's down to the players, but you must play some role in cultivating that feeling, that attitude. How do you go about doing that to make sure that fighting to the death mentality is there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what I try and do is try and manage the players the best I can, and try to set standards of what I expect as well and what the club expects. I think Johnny mentioned it in his podcast as well. I'm always around at the training. Sometimes I'll get involved in the training, but most of the time it's Davey or Sean that's taking the training. And the guys sometimes are maybe thinking, the gaffer's not really watching here, but I'm walking around picking up balls and seeing who's doing what. I manage the players the best I can, and they know what I expect from them. And I've probably changed a little bit from the first spell as manager at Bonnyrigg, whereby I'm a little bit more laid back than I used to be. Players will tell you as well that if they need a blast, they'll get a blast. But most of the time I'm fairly laid back now. But as I say, if things are not going the way I want them to be, or they're not playing to the levels I expect, or working as hard as I think they should be, then they will get a blast. So I think they understand that. And I think they respect me in that respect as well.
Why have you chosen that sort of coaching dynamic where you're more a man manager and step back? Is that because that's something that you saw at Berwick and you thought that's how you got into the coaching side of it, and you think that dynamic works, or how do you decide that you're not going to be sort of day-to-day?
I think it's probably the way I was treated as a player. There was quite a number of times I would say as a player that, you know, you get left out and you don't get spoken to, or don't agree with something, but you don't feel like a manager's maybe explaining something to you. And I think if you spoke to a lot of the boys, that they might disagree when they get left out for a game on a Saturday, but I always speak to a player and say, look, I'm leaving you out today because this, and you might disagree with it, whatever, but that's my decision. If you want to speak about it, come and see me on Tuesday, whatever. And the door's always open for the guys to do that. And as I say, you know, a lot of times they might disagree with it, but as a manager, these are decisions you have to make. But I think you gain respect from people and players that, you know, you're giving them their place, you're giving them the time, and I think that's worked pretty well for me over that period of time. Don't get me wrong, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to do, having to tell a player he's not playing on a Saturday when they've trained on the Tuesday and the Thursday. And, you know, football's a bit of a release for guys as well at our level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's difficult trying to leave these guys out, and you sometimes wish you could just play them all, but that's football, that you've got to make these decisions, and it's hard at times to say to leave them out, but you just got to do it.
And that first season with the league title, is that sweeter than the previous one because there's that progression now that you can see the club moving up the pyramid and they're now into the Lowland League? Yeah,
it was massive to try and get out of that league as soon as we can, because, you know, I'm obviously Boness last year, they were strong, and Lithgow, I think Lithgow this year are going to be really strong as well. Plus you add into the mix of Pennycooks, Broxburns as well, good sides, Musselburgh, good side. So I just felt that you had to try and get out as soon as possible, because if you don't get out in that first season, it might become more difficult each year. So in that respect, that's, you know, it was great to get out in that first season. And then you look at the Lowland League again, and you look at it and you think some of the teams that could potentially come into it again, you know, they look at the West of Scotland teams, you know, Auchinlecks, Darvilles, Pollocks, these teams like that. You know, if they're to get into this Lowland League as well, it's going to be some league, and incredibly difficult to get out. And, you know, this is why, for me, that, you know, they've got to look at it, the SPFL have got to look at it and look at the pyramid system, and there's got to be more fluidity between the leagues to allow teams to find their level quicker. Just my opinion, and a lot of people might disagree with it, but I just feel, you've seen it for yourself, it can be a bit of a closed shop at times.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people listening to this podcast especially would agree with you on that one. Speaking of last season, I don't think I said this on the podcast with Johnny, I don't think anyone thought that Bonnyrigg would struggle, but there's definitely a sense that they defied the expectations last season and really, really pushed Kelty at the top of the league. Were you always confident that it could be that much of a successful season?
I was confident we'd be in the top 4 or 5 teams in the league.
Right.
And I felt like, you know, if we could be hanging in there, then we'd have a chance. But, you know, try to drill into players as well that, you know, we can be quietly confident, but we're not going to go about saying, oh, we're going to win the league or anything like this. Just go about our business as quietly as possible. I know if it comes to the last few months of the season we're in with a chance, then obviously you can start saying, oh, we're here to win it, whatever like that. But obviously the way it transpired at the end was really disappointing. We didn't get to finish the season, but I was always confident at the start of the season that we would be in that top 4 or 5 teams in the league, which was important as well, obviously, for entry into obviously the Tunnocks Cup as well. So, but whether that's going to happen or not, who knows?
Yeah, I'll have to wait and see on that one. Another Scottish Cup run last season, and a massively impressive one as well. When you're talking earlier about maybe the Hebs game becoming a bit of a circus, were you wary of that for the Buckie Thistle game when the BBC are coming on a Friday night? It's maybe obviously it's not the same stage and the same sort of calibre of opposition, but you still sort of the back of your head, you don't want to get caught up in all the lights and the glamour of it.
100%. I said it to the players in the build up to the game that you'd actually watched the Kelty Auchinleck build up as well, and a lot of focus on Kelty in the build up to the game, and I don't know if that riled up Auchinleck as well. And Kelty were a wee bit different in their mindset going into the game. But I was really wary for us as well, because there'd been a lot of focus on Bonnyrigg and lead up to the game, and not so much in Bucky probably. So it added a lot of pressure, but there was lots of things we had to do in the build up to the game as well. I was live on a radio show with Rob McLean and Gary Locke and Mikey Stewart, and the guys obviously doing their different things that they had to do for the papers and the William Hill stuff as well. So I was really aware of it, but in the build-up, Tuesday and Thursday, kind of try to drill it into them. Look, there's a game of football here at the end of this, and the most important thing is that we win that game of football and we get through to the next round. And we did, and wasn't the best of performances. It wasn't the most attractive of games you'll ever see. But again, the guys, dug in and managed to get a result on a pitch. It was just about unplayable, to be honest. I remember turning up at the ground and thinking this game could be off, and I think if it hadn't been on television, I think it might have been off. There was water lying on the pitch, and I just thought, here we go. But lucky for us, it was on, and obviously Johnny let the ball roll, a bit of a flip goal, but then George showed a bit of quality as well.
Such a good goal.
Aye, great goal.
And that whole Scottish Cup run, how validating is that to see Bonnyrigg go on a cup run like that and not just compete with, but beat SPFL clubs? And it only just really backs up your point that the fluidity between the leagues and the SPFL should be a lot greater, really, easier.
Absolutely. You take great pride in these results, and I think it's a marker for the guys as well, whereby they want to show that they're good enough to play at a higher level. And I've said it plenty of times before, there's guys within our squad that are more than capable of playing at a high level, and a number of players as well in the Lowland League are more than capable. You just have to look at the quality of players that Kelty and East Kilbride especially have been signing recently, but other teams as well. There's real quality players within the league, so I just feel like say Kelty and East Kilbride as well, the money they've spent, that they could be competing League One no problem with the budgets that they've got. So you just want, as I say, you just want the pyramid system to be working the way it should be for me.
And talk about managing more generally. We spoke a wee bit about it earlier, but how demanding is it to be a part-time manager? We're talking before we start recording about your work life as well. So you're working, you've got to think about training, you've got to think about player selection and all those sorts of things. Just talk us through how sort of hard that can get to have all these different plates spinning. Yeah,
it's incredibly difficult. I think, like, looking back when I first started, I probably used to try and do too much. I used to try and do the training and do everything else as well. And what you find as well is your phone never stops during the day. It was probably worse when I was at Berwick, to be honest, when in the leagues that your phone never stopped. But it's even for Bonnyrigg as well. It never stops. I probably speak to Davey every day. I think our wives or partners think we're having an affair or something like that. We speak to each other that much. But in the chat with the guys as well, with the committee as well, Charlie, Brendan, Bob, just about every day we're in contact regarding something. So there's always something going on, and you're always thinking towards regards training, and have a brief chat what you're going to do at training, and you're talking about the opposition. So it never stops. In that respect, I'm kind of lucky as well that the job I'm in, I'm out and about appointments, and I could be driving my car and going to an appointment. That's when I'm usually trying to make my phone calls as much as I can in between appointments. So in that respect, I'm quite lucky. But no, it's difficult juggling. I don't think people probably appreciate that or see that, how much time it actually takes up, and your family time as well. But it's something that I enjoy, something I'm passionate about as well. So I wouldn't have changed that for the world.
You mentioned family there, and your daughter's over in the States playing football. How's she getting on? Is she adjusting well to life out there?
Yeah, FaceTiming just about every day. So she FaceTimed yesterday, asked to get Jaffa cakes and white chocolate Kit Kat sent over. So
sent over different.
So she's settled in great. She settled in fine. obviously with COVID at the moment over there as well, the season's actually not starting until January. So at the moment, it's just giving her a chance to kind of settle in regarding her studies. She's obviously studying when she's over there as well, psychology. So, and getting acclimatised as well. So she's doing a bit of training, and then doing her studies and that as well. So she's settled in great.
Sounds brilliant. We're talking about there how demanding management can be at this level. How much easier is it when you've got a squad, like you've said, to get on extremely well? They're able to pull each other up on it. Does that just make your job a lot easier?
It does, aye. It does. You know, they kind of sometimes they can manage themselves. I think Lewis Turner said that a few times in the group chat. He keeps telling me when he fished on a night out. I think sometimes he'll tell me you don't really need a manager. They can manage themselves. But nah, they do. As I said before so many times, it's a fantastic group of players. Been very fortunate. Very fortunate as a manager, but as a club, they've been very, very fortunate with the success we've had and the group of boys we've had for this spell. And at some point, it's going to end. But for now, we've still got them. So you've just got to appreciate them for as long as we've got them. Because as I said, it's a great bunch of guys.
That's 2 consecutive podcasts where Lewis Turner's been called out, so we might need to give him a chance to defend himself at some point. Looking ahead to the new season, just how excited are you to get back on that touchline again, and hopefully we can have as many Rose fans in New Dundas Park as possible?
Yeah, it's still all a bit of the unknown, to be honest.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're just trying to train as normal and prepare as we can. We obviously got pre-season friendlies, etc., lined up as well. But hopefully there'll be some kind of announcements or a wee bit more information coming out this week regarding guidelines to games and who can come in and what. So, but yeah, we're just looking forward to and enjoying it. To be honest, just enjoying being back together as a group and enjoy training again. And yeah, the games will come along thick and fast once we start the pre-season friendlies, and then we'll be right back into it. But looking at the league as a whole, it's a really, really tough league this year. Some really, really strong teams, I would say. So it's going to be a difficult season. And as you said, people seen us last season and maybe know a wee bit more what to expect this season as well. So it's going to be tough, but we're hoping that we'll be towards that top end of the table again.
And in a time when there's been a lot of upheaval in life, but football as well, Bonnyrigg have managed to keep the whole squad together, really, and just a few additions. What do you make of the signings that we've seen come in so far this summer?
No, I'm delighted with the guys that have come in. Andy Mears, a player I really thought had a good season for Civil last year. He done great in the 2 games against us. I thought he was outstanding in the games against us. Gives us another option on the left-hand side as well, but he's technically very, very good, creates things as well. So, he's a really good signing. Big Bob, Robert Wilson, obviously know him from Berwick. I actually knew him from when I was there at Berwick the first time as well, where he was involved with the reserves. That he was only a young lad at the time, but a big strapping centre half. So, I know what I'm going to get with Bob. He's a big, honest guy, gives everything he's got. He's very fit, and a good character for us to have in our changing room as well. So pleased with that. And then obviously young Jordan as well. He had a great season last year with Tynecastle, scored a lot of goals. But already you can see in the wee bits and bobs of training we've got, he's got a great attitude, fantastic attitude. Very fit, good movement, and looks a natural goal scorer as well. So I think he's going to be a really big signing for the club for the years to come as well.
And so you're obviously very happy with this squad. Do you set specific targets heading into the new season, or is it more a case of taking things as they come and hopefully just being as competitive as we can be?
I try and say the guys, this is where we expect to be in the top. Like last year, we kind of said probably top 4, top 5. This is where we want to be. That's where we want to be again. So, yeah, and if we're there competing as the season goes on, then obviously your goals start to move a little bit. But realistically, if you look at teams' budgets, etc., as well, being in the top 4, top 5 is a good thing for Bonnyrigg. But again, with the squad of players that we've got, we're very fortunate, and if we can perform like we can, and we're lucky with injuries, etc., as well, and maybe other teams are maybe not at it, then we've got a chance. There's no doubt about that. We've got a chance. So, but initially you've kind of got in your head if you're the top 4, top 5, and then see if you can go and challenge from there.
Absolutely. Well, Robbie, thank you very much for coming on. It's been great chatting to you, and hopefully I can meet you in person soon enough, and we can get to New Dundas Park and see all the fans again.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everyone for listening or watching. We do hope to see you soon, and keep an eye on our social media channels so we can give you the latest updates on what to expect, like Robbie was saying there. So that's Bonnyrigg Rose Athletic on Facebook and at Bonnyrigg Rose on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to the Rosey Posey Podcast on Spotify, and you can watch it on YouTube at Bonnyrigg Rose TV. Thank you very much again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you soon. Cheers. Thank you.